Two guys who love to talk fantasy baseball.
3-2.
This is Full Count Fantasy Baseball.
In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.
Here are your improbable hosts, Dean Millard and Jordan Blundell.
Presented by Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports. Get in the game where you own the game.
Hello there and welcome to another edition of Full Count Fantasy Baseball right here on the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network, and we are proudly presented by Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports. Missed everybody last week. I didn't have a chance to get a show in, but so glad we're back for this pre-trade deadline. And man, things are heating up with the deadline tomorrow. If you missed it, breaking this morning, the Blue Jays picking up Brad Hand, a reliever from the Nationals, 21 saves and 26 opportunities this year. So it's already started. We'll get to as much information as comes in as we go, but we do like to start things off with a question of the day.
This is a serious message. Peace and love. Peace and love.
And when we look at the schedule for today, July 29th, we actually have a couple of early games today. Doubleheader between the Nats and Phillies today, so they're getting started right away. They are in warm-ups, and the Braves and the Mets in New York going at it as well. Nice pitching matchup there, Smiley versus Walker. And the question I'm asking is, who wins the AL East between the Mets and the Braves? Of course, there are other teams that are in this race, no doubt, in the NL East, including the Phillies, who are playing the Nats today. And the Nats are only 7.5 games back, but it clearly looks like they are about to be sellers. But when it comes to the Mets, can they hold this and hold off the charging Atlanta Braves, who are 4 games back after a win? Actually, I think that might be an old standings page that I'm just looking at. So I'm refreshing this just to make sure. And yeah, the Braves actually 5 games back because they did lose last night to the Mets. So who wins between these two teams? And this is a huge swing, this series. Phillies in between them and the Nationals also in there as well, looking to try and gain some ground, but it looks like they are going to be sellers. And then who knows? They have a lot of other options that they might want to be dealing. One of them we will get to in just a little bit. Big thanks to our title sponsor, Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports. It's the biggest, it's the best, highest stakes, most realistic fantasy gameplay. Every sport mimics the league it's built on. So in the NFL, there's 53-man rosters, offensive linemen, special teams. For the Ultimate Fantasy League Baseball, which I am the head of operations for and the commissioner, and I'm so excited about it, you're going to have a guy that fits into left field. Not just outfielders anymore, where you just slot any guy in. Guy has to qualify in left to play left, just like a guy has to qualify at catcher to play catcher. So you have to be very strategic. We will have 26-man rosters and 40-man list and everything that goes along with baseball. We just auctioned off the franchises for the UFAFL, American football, $1.275 million for 32 franchises. Basketball is on the way in September in Vegas. Baseball, November in Vegas. You got to be there. Get in the game where you own the game. This is Athlete Take Back. Check it out. www.uffsports.com, where you own the game. So we are going to get to our headlines, and a lot of it is going to be about players either traded or about to be traded or that you want to be traded. Jordan can't make it again, unfortunately. I don't know. I don't even know if he's even part of this show. Like at some point, I'm going to have to bring in a bench player. Jordan might become the Wally Pipp of Full Count Fantasy Baseball, and the guy who comes off the bench to replace him never misses a game, a la Lou Gehrig. So he did send in his best bullpens and his top 3 in the division, so we will get to both of those. Baseball Thunderdome, it's a Montreal Expo theme for you today. I think you Expo fans will love it. We'll tell you about some waiver wire wins, prospect peak, look ahead into the future, and Rule Your League is where I'm going to give you something that I think can make your league better, or at the very least help you win your league. And this is how you get in touch with me.
You talking to me? You talking to me? You talking to me? Well, then who the hell else are you talking? You talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here.
I am, indeed. Well, my wife is furiously getting things ready as we're heading out on a road trip through Saskatchewan and Manitoba for the long weekend. So we're looking forward to that. I find the prairies beautiful. I didn't always, but I do see beauty in the prairies now. So looking forward to that drive and looking forward to hearing from you during this show. Please chime in on anything that we are talking about. You can chime in on the YouTube live stream in the comments section. You can get us on Twitter as well. My Twitter handle is @DuckMillard. You can also get on Twitter @UFFS Network. Or UFS Network, and you can reach us through that as well. So many different ways that you can get in touch with me during the show if you have your thoughts. You can also email fullcountfantasybaseball@gmail.com, UFSN@UFFsports.com. If you have a fantasy show you think would be great on our network, hit us up. We are looking and building some really cool things. And check out the websites, fullcountfantasybaseball.ca, and get everything when it comes to the greatest, best fantasy platform, including the blockchain, www.uffsports.com. Here's what I'm going with when it comes to the headlines, and it's trade deadline on Friday. Who will land Max Scherzer? The Padres are certainly interested, as they were in Joey Gallo, and recently landed Adam Frazier, who has another year left on his deal. That was a great pickup by the Padres. LA, what are they going to do? The Dodgers, they need to get their staff sorted out. They'll be in the hunt, but LA is also looking at landing Craig Kimbrell from the Cubs, as Kenley Jansen has had a bumpy second half. Kimbrell, he will end up being the top reliever that is dealt. And I mentioned Brad Hand earlier. The prospect going back to the Nationals is not a top 5 prospect for the Blue Jays. So every other reliever other than Kimbrell is going to get lower value. Trey Turner, meanwhile, is a guy who doesn't want to go out west or move off of shortstop, but he has no control. Unlike Scherzer, who is the 10-5 rule, 10 years in the league and the last 5 with the same team. Turner has no move clause. He doesn't have anything like that. So he has to take whatever trade he's going to get. He can be unhappy and be like Troy Tulowitzki a few years ago when he said he was just going to basically take his glove and go home if they wanted to move him off shortstop. But if a team want Trey Turner, he can't deny any of the trades. And as I mentioned off the top of the show, the Blue Jays getting closer Brad Hand from the Nationals for prospect catcher Willie Adams, ranked 17th among Jays prospects from what I read. Brad Hand this year, pretty decent numbers with the Nationals. When it comes to saves, he's 8th among all pitchers in Major League Baseball. 21 saves among 26 tries. He has given up 17 earned runs, a whip of 1.15, and 42 strikeouts to 18 walks. So pretty good K to walk ratio. So the Blue Jays, this is interesting. People were wondering what the Blue Jays were going to try and do this year. They're 10.5 games back. I don't expect the Blue Jays to go out and just start handing out their prospects like candy for even great players because they have so much room to make up. What I think you do is what it seems like they're doing, shoring up some holes, bringing in some veteran experience. You make a run. If you can get in, that's great. If not, you use that experience for next year. That's what I think the Blue Jays should be. I don't think they should be dealing their top prospects because they have so much room. Not only do they have so much room, games played to make up or games back, but they've got teams in front of them, the Yankees and the Tampa Bay Rays, and then, of course, the Red Sox leading the way. So it'll be interesting to see. As for some of the done deals when it comes to the trade deadline, the A's grabbed outfielder Starling Marte from the Marlins. The Fish offered the pending free agent a $50 million deal, but he declined, so they dealt him for Jesus Luzardo, a young left-hander. Marte has missed a good chunk of the season, but when healthy, 7 home runs, 25 RBIs, and 22 stolen bases with an OPS of .859. However, fantasy owners know this. The A's will likely not give him the green light to steal near as much as the Marlins did. So you could see a dip in those steals for Marte. Just something to think about as the stretch goes on. And then obviously he will, hopefully sign somewhere that is going to allow him to have that green light because he is pretty productive. The Yankees are getting Joey Gallo for 5 prospects. The all-star outfielder, 25 home runs, 55 RBIs. Leads the American League in walks in baseball and walk percentage, and he should thrive. The lefty should just love Yankee Stadium. It's ranked 6th compared to the Rangers' 22 when it comes to home run factor as far as ballparks. And the Brewers, also, this is going to help them. They nabbed Eduardo Escobar, who plays the infield. They were in on Trevor Story. He also gets a bump in home run factor going from 28th to 14th. So if you have Joey Gallo, if you have Eduardo Escobar, you're really, really happy with these moves because the production is going to go up. If you're a Starling Marte GM, you're a little bit concerned because now your stolen bases, could take a hit. And you know what? A guy like Marte, he can help you win stolen bases on his own each week because there's not a lot of guys that have, when he's healthy. He doesn't have a lot, but his when you prorate it, it's pretty awesome. So he's a guy that can help you win that. So that is obviously a concern. You might have to slide in another guy that, is kind of a second-tier stolen base guy to make up for what Marte might not get now that he is an Oakland A. But he's a defensive gem, and he's going to really help the A's. How about this Canadian, Joey Votto, turning back the clock? 6 home runs, 13 RBIs, a .350 average, an .850 OPS in his last 2 weeks. But it gets even better. He has the most home runs, 17, since 2017. At 37, he is an amazing rental for your fantasy team. Plus, he's a good Canadian. Maybe a third Canucks in Cooperstown someday. Have that conversation with someone this week. I'm not sure. I think the Reds would give a really big push, and that would help. Anyway, his on-base streak reached 22 games last night as he went deep again. His 8th home run during the 22-game streak. Also, his 5th straight game where he went yard. It's incredible. And look at these tweets from MLB Stats. 37 years old, Votto is the oldest NL player to hit 6 home runs in a 5-game span since Barry Bonds, who did it at 39 years old in 2004. And then how about this? He joins Johnny Bench and Jay Bruce, 72 in 2010, as the only players in Reds history to hit 7 home runs in a 5-game span. My boy Brent, who is involved in running co-GM of the Royals in the UFHL and a big Reds fan, he put this trivia question out yesterday on the UFLB Telegram chat. And I don't think anybody got both of them. So that's good on him. And he's obviously very happy with what's going on with Joey Votto. All right, so what should you be doing with Max Scherzer? This might sound strange, but I would be selling Scherzer. This is a guy I would be trying to get rid of at the... Of course, if you're trying to win it all this year, then you're not. But like Votto, he's 37. He just turned 37 this week. He would also make a good rental, but he's going to be a lot more expensive than Joey Votto. I would be dealing and stocking assets if I was a middle of the pack or even a final playoff spot team. If I'm a top 2, top 3, top 4 team, maybe top 3, I'd be like, okay, I'm going for it. But if I'm a guy that's not really there, like I advised my buddy Brent this week about dealing Scherzer, picking up prospects. He's 37. He's pitched a lot. I'm not saying he's going to fall off the cliff next year, but each year you get to the trade deadline with a 37 and a 38-year-old, it diminishes. I think you should take and try and get a boatload if you have Max Scherzer. And he's going to get traded. The caveat is if you're not a top 3 team. If you're a top 5, I still might sell, depending on what you might be able to get. It depends on your league, depends on how active the trade market, I guess, is in your league. And finally, let's get to some guys that you want traded as we go to the deadline. Take your pick of a couple of Rockies pitchers, and Germán Márquez and John Gray. Both would be great without battling opponents and science in the way of elevation. Gray has a chance of moving. Colorado is keeping Márquez, according to John Heyman. And if you have Kris Bryant on your fantasy team, you are desperately hoping for a deal. He's hitting below 200 since June, and he's a free agent. There has never been a good relationship when it comes to Bryant and the Cubs. He filed a grievance, because he wasn't happy with how they were playing and trying to manipulate the service time. So I think it's time they likely moved on. The Cubs, they might as well see what they can get for Bryant, who was really, really, really hot at one point, and then, like the Cubs, fell apart. So he can get back on track. He can get motivated. I think if you have Kris Bryant on your fantasy team, you're just praying for a trade. All right, let's get to best of bullpens. Jordan sent this in. Pains me to have to give credit to the Giants bullpen in the last 30 days, but they have been good. Dodgers-Giants right now, it's been weird. The Dodgers are just a strange team right now. They can't stop injuries to key guys. It's unbelievable. And the Giants, they're just having an amazing season. I mean, I've gushed about Buster Posey and Kevin Gausman in the past. They are just on a roll. Jarlin Garcia, left-hander, 11 2/3, has a couple of wins, 14 Ks, 3 holds, which I think are a huge fantasy stat. If you're a fantasy league and you don't have holds, you need to really look into it. That ERA of nothing and a .35 whip. Then you go to Jay Jackson. In 6 innings, he's got a win in the last 30 days, 9 strikeouts, again, a couple of holds, 0.0 Blutowski ERA, and a .17 whip. Then Jose Alvarez, a left-hander, 9 2/3, a couple of wins, 6 Ks, 2.79 ERA, and a .62 whip. It's one of the reasons that they have the best record in baseball. I can't believe I just said that at the end of July, that the Giants still have the best record in baseball. The Dodgers are 2 back. The Padres are 5.5. But man, how is this happening? My friend Jack Cookson, who's a massive Giant fan, so him and I surprisingly don't get along very often. Even he, at times, cannot believe what he is seeing. Maybe he's starting to become a believer. If you're a Giants fan out there, are you becoming a believer in this team yet? Because I don't think anybody saw this coming at all. Even the most diehard of Giant fans, I do not think saw this coming down the pipe. All right, let's now get to Baseball Thunderdome.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
You be cocky and arrogant, even when you're getting beat.
2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
Prediction? Yes, prediction.
And right now, I've got 2 men.
It's serious.
All right, so Baseball Thunderdome. Usually what I do when Jordan's not here, when Jordan's here, I give him a choice of baseball players that are currently playing. But when he's not here, I get to have some fun with this. So that's what I'm doing with this. And it is the Montreal Expo edition. So this is how Baseball Thunderdome works. I give you the choice of 2 players. You have to take one for fantasy purposes. So Baseball Thunderdome Expos edition, the Hawk versus the Kid. Dawson versus Gary Carter. Andre Dawson versus Gary Carter. In fantasy purposes, who would you take? And this is partly my, 8-9-year-old Dean Millard coming out of me, but I would go with Gary Carter. And I'm going to use the logic that Jordan has used in the past when looking at these guys, because he's the catcher. And they're just, Gary Carter was such an elite catcher, although there were a few of them in that era. There are way more elite outfielders than there are elite catchers. So for that purpose, fantasy-wise, I'm going with the kid, Gary Carter, because you're getting definitely the top percentile of his generation for his player. Andre Dawson was awesome, but there were more guys like Andre Dawson or just as good than there were of Gary Carter. You might have heard that in the background. Fadakes is getting ready for the road trip. She's pretty excited, so we're excited for the road trip. Anyway, I would go with Gary Carter. In my mind, you might be different. You might be a Hawk guy, and you want to go with Andre Dawson. I think they're both legendary Hall of Famers, of course. But hey, take your pick in baseball Thunderdome. Who would you take, the Hawk or the Kid, when it comes to baseball Thunderdome? We're going to get to waiver wire wins and top 3 in the division. But if you want to have your say on baseball Thunderdome, it's really easy to do so. Hit us up on Twitter at Duck Millard, at UFS Network, or you can get us through email, fullcountfantasybaseball@gmail.com or UFSN@UFFsports.com. You can chime in on Twitter. You can chime in on the YouTube live stream as well. Who would you take between the Kid and the Hawk when it comes to baseball Thunderdome? As mentioned, we have waiver wire wins still to come, as well as top 3 in the division.
This is Full Count Fantasy Baseball.
Don't try to strike everybody out. Strikeouts are boring. Besides that, they're fascist.
Presented by Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports.
Throw some ground ball. More democratic.
Get in the game, where you own the game.
Full Count Fantasy Baseball is part of the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network, your one-stop fantasy sports shop. We have some really cool things going on, from the shows that you see about the UFHL, about the platform in general, about scouting, and we've got some really awesome stuff on the way as well. Football fans, you will like it, and we're always looking for more great programming as well. So reach out if you are interested in being a part of the rotation, whether you have a daily, weekly, or even monthly show. If it's about fantasy sports, we would love to chat with you. Email us, ufsn@uffsports.com, and we can get in touch and chat about getting you on the network. We are partnering with AO Sports, and we have some awesome stuff going on. If you saw any of the UFAFL franchise auctions, you will see just how great the production is. And for you athletes out there, you're going to love AO Sports, and you fans of the athletes are going to get to know them on a whole nother level. Okay, time for waiver wire wins. I'm going with Kike Hernandez, former Dodger, so I have a little fondness for him. And if you know anything about this show, you know we love guys that you can move around and play multiple positions. And Kike plays second, short, outfield, obviously qualifies as the utility or DH, and he plays in Boston, so the American League uses that. And as of late, he's been pretty good. 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, and an OPS of over 1. So if you're looking for a guy right now that's on a bit of a heater, you could do a lot worse than Kike Hernandez, a guy who gives you so much versatility that you would be able to move him around. So that's the suggestion I'm going with right now. Keep in mind, the waiver wire can help you win, but you're not going to find a guy you're not going to find Max Muncy on the waiver wire, but these are guys that you're going to be able to plug in that are going to be able to fill some gaps, especially a guy like Hernandez, who is a multiple position player. As we move now into top 3 into the division, Jordan sent this in, and we're going with the NL Central in the last month. And we talked about Joey Votto already. 30 hits, 9 of them home runs, 21 RBIs, 1.174 OPS. This guy is just ripping it up. And, you know, I don't know. I didn't think I saw this resurgence coming. I mean, he has the most home runs, as I mentioned, in the last 4 years of his career. So this is a fun thing to watch as Canadian baseball fans, for sure. Willie Adams, the shortstop with the Brew Crew, 26 hits, driven in 18, 21 runs scored. Also has 6 homers, has stolen a base and OPS just under 1,000. And Harrison Bader, he's getting a lot of attention lately as well. He's with the Cardinals. He's an outfielder, and he has 5 long balls, 16 RBIs, can swipe a few bags with 3 of them in the last month, and an OPS of 1.094. So the NL Central, as far as the last 30 days, you've got some, the NL Central on its own has some pretty competitive teams. The Cubs, I think the Cubs are in the same spot as the Blue Jays. They're done. They're just trying to get any kind of experience they possibly can, and it's a 3-team race in the AL East as it starts to happen. As you go, the NL East is the closest. Even though the Nats are dealing, they're only 8 games back. But the NL Central, it's coming down to the Cardinals, the Reds, and the Brewers, who have a lengthy lead of 7 games. But that Cincinnati team, they can. I have a feeling they can get hot at any point. So, by no means is the NL Central over, but these guys from these 3 teams will be vying for that pennant and taking the division rather, and trying to win it all instead of having to rely on a possible wild card, because you never want to have to rely on a wild card. You'd love to be able to just win your division and kind of get into it that way. All right, we have still lots to come on Full Count Fantasy Baseball. Prospect Peak, we'll look ahead at a starring prospect for the Kansas City Royals. And in Rule Your League, I'm going to talk about auction drafts. All of that still to come here on Full Count Fantasy Baseball, presented by Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports.
This is Full Count Fantasy Baseball.
Say hey, Willie Mays Hayes here. Play like Mays, and I run like Hayes.
Presented by Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports.
Well, you may run like Mays, but you hit like shit.
Get in the game where you own the game.
Every time I see you hit one in the air, you owe me 20 push-ups.
Full Count Fantasy Baseball is presented by Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports. And man, I love talking about this. I could never have imagined in my wildest dreams I would stumble upon a fantasy platform as detailed as this. I mean, our baseball league, the Ultimate Fantasy League Baseball, is going to be so detailed. Pretty much everything that happens in MLB happens in our league. As I mentioned, individual positions, not just outfielders. You'll have your rotations. You'll be starting, more than just closers. You will need middle relievers. There are 30 teams, just like Major League Baseball. So all teams will have full rosters. And then get this. You're going to love this. There's a scouting program. Yes, you are scouting real-world players. You go to a game in Texas and you see a high schooler, or you go to a college game somewhere and you see a guy, you check out the website. He's not owned by any scouting agency. You can list that player for $20. And then $20 worth of score coin. And then you go on from there to maybe sell that player. They get drafted and they go on to the big leagues. You're actually scouting real-world players. There's an annual scouting auction for scouts to bid on the top prospects they think will go on to be the best of the best. And then from the rest, it's $20. So much going on. Check it out, www.uffsports.com. This is the Athlete Take Back, where you own the game. I am so excited. We will have franchise auctions November 5th to 7th in Vegas, just like we did with the UFAFL, and just like we will be doing with the UFBA, the Ultimate Fantasy Basketball Association, September 10th to 12th in Vegas. They have a really cool basketball tournament planned for that as well. But baseball, Vegas, November, sounds like a plan to me. I can't wait for you all to be there and join us in the fun that we're having. All right, let's look ahead to the future now, and this would be a guy who would be scouted very early in UFLB. Bobby Witt Jr., shortstop with the Royals. These are his numbers in AAA since being called up. By the way, he's right throwing, right hitting. 3 home runs, 5 RBIs, a stolen base, and a whip of 1.008. Now, that's a short sample size, but expect to see him in Kauffman Stadium wearing royal blue very soon. The 21-year-old right-hitting, right-throwing shortstop had 16 home runs, 51 RBIs, and swiped 14 bags in Double-A, where he also had an OPS of almost 940, and since his promotion has been kept right on going with the long balls. Man, small sample size, 7 games, but a hot start, and a guy you should be targeting at the deadline if you're selling. Draft picks are great. These guys are already developing, and I know teams aren't going to want to give them away, but you also don't want to give away your Max Scherzer or whatever it might be unless you're getting a guy you know is close. So target Bobby Witt Jr. right now, when your deadline comes up. Your deadline probably isn't the same as Major League Baseball's, but that's what I would be looking at, is a guy like Bobby Witt Jr. Those are the guys you should be trying to grab if you are selling teams at the deadline.
Smokey, this is not Nam. This is bowling. There are rules.
I don't think it taints it.
What you talking about, mister?
You're crazy. I like you, but you're crazy.
All right, in Rule Your League, what I like to do is give you a rule that maybe I have used before or I've heard about that has had some success, or definitely something for your league to make it better, or a rule that maybe some advice, rules to live by when it comes to fantasy baseball or fantasy sports in general. The rule, I think, that would be really cool for a lot of leagues. It's not going to work for every league because it does take a long time. Auction drafts. So in the UFFS, all our drafts are auctions. We just finished a hockey draft, and some players went for $2,000 US worth of score coins. So it's actual real money. But you could do an auction with just an imaginary budget. Every team you can go $100, and you bid in increments of 25 cents or whatever it might be. You can make up the evaluations. In UFLB, it'll be real dollars. In the UFHL, it's real dollars because this is an investment. Fantasy sports on the blockchain, athlete take back. So anyway, we are doing auctions for everything. It's awesome. And how we do it is it's 5-team bubbles. So 5 teams, the team that finished last, and then the next 4 teams in the bubble, they're bidding. The team that wins the bid leaves the auction bubble. The next team moves in. But you could do it where everybody gets to bid, and there's basically no draft picks. So you can combine draft picks and have bubble slots like that, or you can keep it wide open. But instead of just a draft, it's interesting because then you start to see who values who. And maybe you don't want to do it for your main draft, but maybe you have a rookie draft. So maybe you assign everybody an X amount of rookie dollars for the rookie auction. We only have 2 rounds in our rookie auction. We could easily do it in the Great White North Baseball League. And then you're throwing rookie dollars. And you can only spend this money in the rookie draft. You can't spend it on a prospect later on that you pick up on waivers. You get a certain amount of money, and then every team gets to bid on each guy that comes up. As mentioned, it takes a long time. It takes hours to do it. So not every league will want to do it, or not every league will be able to do it. But I think it's cool. I love that we do it in the UFHL, and we'll be doing it in every other UFFS league as well. So it's something that I absolutely love. And yeah, it does reward people in real life with deeper pockets than others. But there's also strategy involved as well. If you're good at scouting, you can identify players that you think can outkick their coverage and outplay kind of their draft ranking. So it's not for everybody, but it certainly is fun when you can work it in. As for what I'm watching this weekend, as mentioned, I'm heading back to Manitoba, so I'll be in a hotel room for tonight, well, for the next bunch of nights as well. But I'll be watching when I get there Astros Giants, and I can't believe I said that because both of these teams are on my hate list, especially the cheating Astros. But anyway, Valdez-Gossman is a matchup I'll be watching tomorrow night in my hotel room. And then Friday night, that's Friday, and Greinke versus Wood on Saturday. So I think that's a good matchup. 2 teams that will certainly be contenders based on their records right now for not only a playoff spot, but definitely the World Series, because they are both playing extraordinarily well. All right, I've been telling you about UFF Sports. There it is right there, www.uffsports.com. You can register as a fan and then become a scout. If you want to be an owner, you can try and buy a team. There are so many ways to get involved. You can put your name out as a GM. Right now, the group that bought the UFAFL team, owned by Chris Carter, Michael Vick, and Terrence Crawford, they're looking for a capologist in the NFL because we also follow the salary cap. That means in baseball, there'll be a luxury tax as well. So much realism in this league, and you can find out more information right there on the website or follow at UFF Sports, at UFS Network on Twitter, or any of the other leagues, at UFH League, if you want to as well to find out more about our hockey league. And we want to remind you that we do have UFSN, the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network, your one-stop fantasy sports shop. You could follow along on Twitter at UFS Network. You can find UFSN on YouTube. And if you have a fantasy sports show, hit us up and join the fun. This is what we have going for a schedule right now. The UFFS podcast will return August 8th. That comes your way every second Sunday. A bit of a delay because of the franchise auctions in Vegas and the long weekend for vacations for people. 2 Minute Tuesday with Darren Bates will come out this week or next week. Tracking the Draft with Craig Button usually comes out Wednesday. Unfortunately, Craig was involved in the NHL free agency coverage with TSN. He's the director of scouting for TSN, so he couldn't join us this week, but we will hopefully catch up to him next week while I'm in Brandon. We'll do a special hotel room show, as we're going to be doing with UFHL Now on Friday. Larry Fisher and I, well, he's not traveling with me, but we'll be recording that actually on a Thursday night, and it'll come out earlier on Friday. And the Ultimate Roundtable comes your way Saturdays once a month, usually about the third week of the month. We are working on good things for that next episode. All right. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I don't know when Jordan Blundell will be back, but I do have some parting advice for everybody.
You be cocky and arrogant, even when you're getting beat.
That's my advice. Thank you from Crash Davis. All right. Thank you so much for watching the program. Thank you so much to Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports for being the presenting sponsor of this show. So many great things going on with that. I really can't wait to be able to bring you the rule book for the UFLB. Will be ready very soon as well. One more piece of advice from myself, and that is simply ban the shift. See you later.